Welcome. We have the first person. So today we're going to be talking about survival identity, nervous system work, expansion. A lot of you are waking up. A lot of you are realizing already that almost everything is an illusion and the belief systems are falling apart. Psychology, mental health, psychiatry, coaching industry, everything is changing. All the, I'm going to say hello to a few people. All the beliefs according to which we have been functioning and living are not, are not serving us anymore. So we're going to take it under the microscope today, and I'm going to teach you some really cool stuff about how your psyche is constructed and how we operate from the level of illusion rather than reality, and that your nervous system and your consciousness is limitless, but it's absolutely up to you. So you can't get anyone, hi Anna, you can't get anyone to actually get into your head and into your inner space and make decisions for you. You can only own it, and you are the only owner of your inner space. Your mind, however, there are some entry doors to it. So all the belief systems, everything you believe about yourself, everything about you believe about your mind, everything you believe about your reality, although I am saying that a lot of people are waking up, right? So a lot of people are already realizing that the stuff that we've been told and fed is not really true, and human potential is being now upgraded. So you are being upgraded all the time. You are changing all the time. The difference is, the trick here is to become aware of it so you can be in charge of the change and of the upgrade. Because otherwise, if you're not aware, if you're not awakened to the processes are going on around in your psyche, you are not able to in any way impact it, right? So we've been told to control that we try to control everything outside of us, plan and determine, but this is not really, that's the old paradigm. The new paradigm, the new paradigm is the consciousness. The new paradigm is frequency of your consciousness. And your personality, your belief system, and how you perceive yourself is built on the old paradigm. You thinking of yourself in a certain way, it's the old paradigm. You can absolutely change everything, and a lot of people are seeking change already. A lot of people are realizing that they can determine what their reality is and how to play with their reality. A lot of people are realizing that they're waking up, basically. That's the whole awakening movement now. I want you to understand that the idea that you have to do anything at this point in order to awaken, it's not really true, or it's false in a sense that your nervous system and the frequency on Earth is already upgrading. So there is a lot of movement in our understanding of human experience. There's a lot of movement in our understanding of how we operate, right? So whatever you've been living as, it's your survival identity, and that identity most likely has served you very well, and it gave you orientation, and obviously that identity is formulated and formatted in the context of your family, so in your childhood. So you become what you had to become in order to survive what you had to survive, right? But then that is very limiting, that becomes suffocating. So the way you perceive yourself, I am this, that is my role. These are roles that can be absolutely upgraded and changed. So whatever you're thinking about yourself, plus other people, but we're not going to focus on other people for now, is your survival identity, including your mental health, your psychology, your approach to life, how you approach stress, life. Everything is absolutely changeable. So even though you think that your personality is a real thing, it's a concept, right? There are some tendencies that could be confirmed. So you have a unique nature, and that comes from your heart and from your soul. But I want to deal with the layer of mind, the socialized mind, that you have been told to treat as the only lens through which you can look at the world. How are two siblings growing up in the same household can be so different? Exactly. That's exactly what I mean. It's a very beautiful example of what I mean. Is because the reality is subjective. It's not objective. Even though we've been told to generalize and put people into boxes, but it cannot be done that way because everyone perceives their reality from their angle and from their dimension. So you are you are a walking field of consciousness, and we are being born into a certain level of consciousness, but in terms of the family system, right? But that doesn't determine who you can become, as you know. And a lot of people are questioning the family systems, and a lot of us have been brought up and actually traumatized in the community of the family, in the community of church, hence all the scandals, etc., etc. Hello everyone, I'm on 2 platforms, so if you see me switching, that's the reason. So I want you to realize that anything that you are now, you can expand beyond. Anything you think of yourself now, you can expand beyond. Your consciousness is flexible, plastic. They talk about brain plasticity, but actually what it means, it's beyond your brain. It's also about your nervous system more often. So your body and your nervous system is a technology through which, and your awareness, with your awareness is the tool to operate the best piece of technology there is, i.e. your nervous system. I used to be a therapist, as you may know, and I have moved away. I did completely 180 on the idea of personality, mental diagnosis, mental disorders, and because the frequency of the earth and the awareness of people is upgrading, and the paradigms are upgrading, people are becoming more and more aware. And if you're not becoming more aware, you're not going to know what I'm talking about. But if you are actually realizing and seeing through the bullshit, you're seeing through the illusion, you're seeing synchronicities, you're seeing how you are the perceiver, you're observing a reality from a different level, then this is what's happening. Your nervous system is upgrading constantly, right? So people talk about jumping timelines. This is what's happening because it's really about your perception, right? It's really about your ability to navigate your nervous system. And I want you to become aware of this system and question what you've been told about yourself. Every single label you have been given, I want you to peel it away from yourself and question the label, personality-wise, mental health-wise, right? So let's draw a big question mark under each statement that you may be holding around about yourself. So the first thing that comes to mind that you think, I am this, whatever comes to mind, treat it as false, right? What is being hijacked here is your perception of yourself and your understanding of your personality and of your mind. And mind is layered. It has a lower layer that is up for grabs. And if you're operating from the level of the lower mind, your identity is really questionable, because that's the fearful identity. That's the identity that is scared of being true to themselves, that is scared to express their truth, that is scared to embody themselves, to be courageous, right? So you are being fed with fear from every single system there is, including school, government, your family, and you being told who to be and how you are, even though you have that feeling from very early on in your life that everything you're hearing is not really how you perceive the reality. So I'm speaking to people who have realized very early on, or they might be realizing now, that their identity is imposed from the outside on them, but they feel very different to what they're hearing. They feel they have this feeling in their bones, they have this feeling in their body and their heart, but actually that's not the case. So that would be translated into thoughts like, I want to be creative, I want to be expressive. That's understanding different creative outlets, right? Music, writing, wanting to have fun. Because your soul, if you're operating, that's what spiritual is, being spiritual really means, is that you want to have fun and you want to play with your reality. Because there are 3 levels of consciousness, right? One is life happens to me. The second level of consciousness is life happens by me. The third level of consciousness is life happens through me. And the fourth level of consciousness is Jesus, Buddha, and people that have gone to the stage of alignment. So there is a lot of talk at the top of the scale. I'm referencing Map of Consciousness by Hawkins. If for those of you who are very interested, I found this to be the most grounding and orienting tool that have ever been produced in the studying of mind, in the studying of consciousness. It's actually a tool that has been developed based on 25,000 people. So, you can call it a test, you can call it a point of reference. We like orienting ourselves. So this is what I'm trying to, that's the orientation here. That's the map, right? The map of consciousness by Hawkins. So let's start to think about your identity and your mental health and all the labels that you have acquired along the way, including your personality, what teachers told you about you at school. You're good at this, you're useless at this, right? Your parents told you about you, oh, you're not important. And obviously the way you were treated, that was your programming. Do you think you can be in all the red zones? You're referring to my calls. Yes. You do have a predominant state of consciousness, your baseline, but you can flip and switch. Good. But becoming aware, what is consciousness as a tool here really doing is, once you become aware of where your nervous system is and where your consciousness is, it's really easy to go up. Going up the ladder of consciousness and awareness doesn't really happen on its own. You need your inner awareness first, right? And that is trained by meditation, that is trained by the psychedelics, let's say, right? So people do have those experiences of expansion of their inner awareness. They see through the veil of illusion, for example, but they don't know what to do about it later. Right? So they don't know how to integrate their experiences. That's why they go back. So how many people, and that includes therapy, that includes any sort of training, because what happens is the energy is being awakening you, and that at first it's very, very scary. It's extremely scary to feel powerful, because for so long you have been told that you the victim of the reality, not the other way around. You're not the maker of the reality. So that's the old paradigm. The old paradigm is things happen to you. Illnesses, conditions, diagnosis, right? But the new paradigm that is emerging, and it's emerging globally and collectively, and on the individual level, we do need to take responsibility for ourselves. Many people misunderstand responsibility as a burden, right? So this is usually people who had to be very responsible early on in life. So they think, no, I can't be dealing with this, it's too heavy, it's too much. This is because your nervous system is not recalibrated. So when you're thinking about identity expansion, it has to be done consciously and mindfully. Even though, as I said, the work is being, your nervous system is already recalibrating. So if you're seeing through the bullshit that you're being fed, if you're seeing through the illusion, and how do you see through the illusion? You feel it in your body. Someone is saying something, and you just go, that doesn't sound right to me, right? So any ego-based narrative, so anything that is black and white, anything that has all the answers, so this is how media is basically, so they have an agenda and it's based on fear, and they all want you to feel scared about the future, right? So that's a lot of algorithms are based this way now, because whatever you're thinking and where your consciousness is, your brain is going to filter. This is how the algorithm works, people. Your brain is going to filter, right? Process only the information that matches your level of consciousness. This is how important that is. And if there's a mismatch between what you believe about yourself and the nature of reality, and you have a feeling like, that doesn't sound right, or I no longer subscribe to this, you've got, organized religion, media, and like the agenda here is to hook into your consciousness. Because unless you're aware of it, of the vortex of your awareness, of your inner consciousness, that you are a field that is really prone to manipulation. You are a magnetic field, right? So unless you present with your awareness in your inner space, you are really prone for manipulation. It's really easy to manipulate you. It's really easy for you to buy things you don't need, because you don't buy from the need, you buy from the identity you carry and embody. Right? And at the moment, the identity, the survival identity, is usually fractured is disintegrated, is if you don't know who you are, what values you hold, and you're not centered around your inner experience, you will be used and abused by various systems, by various industries, and don't tell me you're not, because everyone is. And unless I go into my cave and completely I don't interact with the matrix, then I am free. But the minute I go into the shopping center, and unless I go like this, they can hook into me. Now I'm pretty much stabilized and I own my space, and I really, every day I work on the fact that my integrity needs to be centered and embodied. Then I'm fine, right? So I'm very difficult to sell to, whatever, right? And I can read through the bullshit. And I really know what I need, because once your identity is centered, so this is what I mean. Survival identity, so your personality, it's really flimsy and wobbly, right? It's flimsy, wobbly, and up for grabs. You can only, that's why a lot of people are isolating. That's why people who are awakening, they understand, because you can no longer have the same conversations. You can no longer destabilize yourself. And people who are awakening to their true nature and what's in their heart and what they are about, they want to live there all the time. And a lot of human interaction is based on shallowness, right? It's based on small talk. And words are just words for a lot of people. They don't pay attention to how they speak, what they mean. They manipulate the meaning. So this is what I mean by your lower mind being up for grabs. Unless your identity is stabilized, grounded, and embodied, and you live there 24/7, you are unable to be stable, right? What that means is peeling off all the labels that you have been given and being honest with yourself, right? And this is the whole thing about dysregulating your nervous system. And how do I regulate my nervous system? Well, you take ownership of the fact that you yourself give permission to other people and the system to dysregulate it. So you accept the labels. You live in victimhood of those labels, because guess what? Victimhood pays off, especially today, right? It's almost like victimhood is being incentivized in a lot of systems and communities. If you call yourself a victim of something, that gives you a sense of identity, which is being incentivized. But again, from the system perspective, they have you. Because once they give you something, you need to give it back. You need to give your attention, your loyalty, right? This is how toxic relationship work. So it works on every single level. It works with your sense of identity. If you live from your survival identity, so anxiety, depression, and you treated mental health diagnosis, then you are really prone to manipulation, and you are really prone to be caught up in buying things, needing things you never use, right? That's why people have full wardrobes of things they don't wear, need. That's why people have a lot of different gadgets in the house and don't use, because you're being snowed down by all these things. Because once the lack of the fact that your identity is scattered, so all over the place, you don't know who you are, you don't know where you're going, you don't own the inner space, you will be responding, because you're not conscious, to all these different systems and industries. And that is exhausting, you see. If what we're doing was the right thing, we wouldn't be where we are. We wouldn't have mental health crisis on our hand. We wouldn't have younger and younger children being diagnosed with shit and medicalized, right? And medicated. Everything is like, that's the that's the medical model. Medical model is based on the medical model is based on the fact that you don't know this shit, you don't know this stuff, and you've been told that you need to educate yourself, have this knowledge, have these letters in front of your name, right? With complete disregard to who you are in your heart. The whole psychiatry is based on the idea that you have been separated from your soul and you don't know how your psyche works and who you are. So your identity is based on basically bullshit and illusion. Because this is how they do it, this is how it's layered. Look what's going on now. First, they manipulate the language. So they get into the narrative, they change the meaning of things. So when it comes to the psyche, that happened about 100 years ago, where the psyche used to mean, because it means from Greek, the soul, but the psyche has been replaced in psychiatry with the brain. Because no one really knew what to do about it and with it. And psychiatry really hijacked the psychotherapy world, and psychiatrists and the medical profession, they wanted to be the doctors, right? They wanted to be the doctors and they wanted to have the credentials and they wanted to be serious and treated like doctors. That's why in America, you have a completely different system than in the UK, because in the UK and the whole Europe really, you don't have to be a medical doctor to be a psychologist, which is great because that keeps the brain and the soul separately, right? Even though psychology is, another sort of, I have a degree in psychology, so I've done I've got all the letters in front of my name. But that narrative never agreed with me in a way. But I was told that in order to help people and to work with their mind and to relate to people in a helpful way, because I didn't become a therapist when I got my qualification. I was always a person who, with lots of friends, I could really make a connection with every human I would meet, I've lived in 3 countries all around Europe, and it doesn't really mean that it doesn't matter for me if I'm not speaking the language. I would make a connection with anyone. And this is why I became a therapist, because that's the only thing I can do. I can make a connection, right? But then I was trained and it was drummed into me that it's all about the brain, that it's all about the diagnosis, and you work from the angle of the diagnosis. And it was heartbreaking for me to realize that I've done all this work and I'm working in private practice and I worked for NHS. But these people are actually my clients. We can't go beyond and that wasn't conscious. But it was my consciousness already upgrading. It was my nervous system letting me know that the paradigm within which I'm working with people is false, okay? It's illusion-based, it's ego-based. So obviously some ideas are very useful to orient yourself and to anchor yourself. So I'm not saying all psychology is bullshit, but I'm saying that it's just part of the story and it's one angle, which I want you to question for yourself. And you may already have that feeling that, even though you've been diagnosed with things, but the explanation, the diagnosis really doesn't cover the true essence of who you are and how you perceive reality, because it's all perception of the reality. Because the higher you are on the consciousness map scale, the more you see and the more you understand, and you don't even need words. One of the traps in the society is the intellect, is that although intellect is something between the brain and the heart, right? But you need to, there are a lot of people with fantastic intellect, but then they getting caught up in the rational, logical structures which sort of flatten the intellect, flatten the soul. They divorce you from the soul, hence you've got all the like the whole corporate world is based on the idea that you're just a machine, you're the resource. That's why there's a department in your company, if you're working for one, called human resources, because your consciousness is the resource. And that's why a lot of people are leaving the corporate world, because it's killing people. That's why you can have a fantastic job, a great career, but you will get so ill that it will enable you to be in this environment, because this environment is absolutely artificial, made up, aka matrix. It doesn't mean anything to you as a human being. It means a lot to your persona, status, what car do you drive, where you go on holiday. So we value it in the society in a way. But if you in any way connected with your soul and who you truly are, then you won't value those things. But because there's a big payoff, there's financial and materialistic reward that is coming, right? So if your sense of self is really flimsy, I always wondered, why did I, even trying too hard, I tried really hard to work for certain places, but I was always rejected, but that was my energy. Like I couldn't really make myself into this version, because the more sense of identity you have and that it's aligned with your heart, the less you're able to fit in with the artificial structures of the matrix or of the society that is really becomes toxic to you. So it was really a divine intervention. It was somehow the world has navigated me, and I was always like really thriving in environments where I could be myself. And right, I'm gonna what with people who stuck in between awakening and social frames of proper rationalism? Very good question. So there's this space, right? So if you so far have been functioning in this rational layer of your brain, so things for you had to make sense financially, logically, because my family wants me to do this, or my spouse wants me to do this because I'm a father, I'm a mother, whatever the norms that were imposed on you. But you're actually realizing that there's so much more to you, there's so much more essence to you. It's a very destabilizing time, and being aware of the fact that you are powerful and you are in charge of your reality, because that's awakening, that's part of the awakening, right? So you're awakening from and you are awakening to. So you are awakening from the fact that on some level you've been asleep, right? Especially if you haven't been celebrating yourself in any way and connecting with your creativity. You haven't been a maker, you've just been a follower. So you haven't been generating life, you've been replicating life of others. So you've been living by a script of others. That's the rationalism idea. So you've been reduced to a follower, hence we have followers on social media, right? But you are not a follower at heart. I don't think anyone is at this point. And you're realizing, so it depends where you are, but for as long as you need, keep one foot, stabilize yourself, and surrender slowly to the power and balance those energies on the map of consciousness. The shift that is being created the most, so the difference between letting go and surrendering, is the courage. So if you find it in yourself to act out with courage on certain thoughts and feelings that you might have, so telling your truth, having some integrity, well, this is what I'm saying, it depends where you are. This is how you move along, and you become more and more comfortable with the discomfort of shedding the layers of conditioning. And just so you know, you are not lonely. There are a lot of people waking up. You might be the first in your family. You might be the first in your group of friends. But that means you are a leader. That means you have something in you that this experience has happened to. That means you are being called to the higher level of consciousness, and just so you know, everything is good. Do whatever you need to be doing to ground yourself. Don't judge yourself for anything. Remove the labels, keep going, steady. Have a lot of rest, because your nervous system is already upgrading. What can you do with another person who is between and is messed up? I don't understand this word so I think you but we cannot influence other people with their awakening. You can only be an example, because once you stabilize yourself in the awakening and in the higher state of consciousness, then they respond to you differently. So you don't manipulate it you don't explain yourself. Three things always helps, right? You don't explain yourself. This is beyond words, and you can't even find the words sometimes to explain your inner state and your inner consciousness. A lot of the times it's bliss, a lot of the times it's euphoria. This is what people get after psychedelics, right? So you don't explain yourself, you just lead. You become a leader of the group. And the people who are ready to awaken, they will. Just remember, everyone has their own path. So we can't really determine for anyone. And you'd never know what they need. Some people need to stay asleep if they don't have conditions. That's another thing to know. And the same thing with mental health. If you're having mental health problems and your anxiety, depression, or your awakening is not going to go, it's because you are ready to face it. Because a lot of the times your anxiety and depression disappears in crisis. A lot of the times the new version of you and the expanded identity disappears in crisis because it has to. Because in crisis you need to act out from the grounded physical reality that you are in. And this is how it's designed. So a lot of your awareness, you don't need to see where everybody is, and you don't need to act from the spirit, you need to act from the body, because there are 3 levels to act, right? You act out your state. So you act from the body, you act from the mind, and you act from the spirit. So again, various different traditions and teachings, they talk about three different levels of functioning, of operating from, right? Conscious, subconscious, unconscious. Holy Spirit, God, Jesus, like everyone has, like every teachings and every school of thought, they have come to the conclusion that humans are, you have three dimensions. So in crisis, where you do have to really focus on the things that you're trying to get away from, or the danger, or think that people really need you, you become this version that is needed in this context, right? So you do need to act from the physical plane. And this is very often for people who have children and who are awakening and realizing, oh my God, what we're doing with the children. Like, their children will be fine if you are fine. So that's another thing, you know, like, let's stop looking at other people, what they're doing, and let's start owning our choices and our behaviors and how we act. Because at this point, guys, people have had a lot of information and different explanations. If they're not listening up at this point, and how many people do you know who've been through how many years of therapy, have seen a lot of different therapists? It actually used to make me quite uncomfortable when someone said, "You're my fourth therapist." So I knew straight away that this person is going to make another loop with me. Because a lot of people, if they operate from the lower mind, i.e. ego, will be having the same conversation for 30 years. And a lot of people will spend their whole lives in this. So make sure that that's not you. Make sure that you act out what you act out your sense of direction in life, and think about, okay, what identity am I operating from here? Am I operating from my survival identity with all the labels around me and, you know, being nice to everyone and or rescuing everyone or being avoidant of life, right? It's about interacting with life and not being scared of life. And acting out on your thoughts, enthusiasm, passion for things, which you have plenty. That's limitless energy. But what you've been told is that you're not good enough, you're not educated enough, you don't understand enough. That's the problem. It's not about the rational brain. That's just part of the story. And in your mind, you've got your ego. And everyone has an ego. So that's a very controlling part of you. It's that this is going to be this way. No, I need to be right here, right? Even though, so I'll ignore everything I need to be doing, because ego doesn't like growth. Ego doesn't want you to expand. The coach is not right. So no, I'm not paying for this. No, I'm not paying for this. I'll be paying for my attachments to different things. I can subscribe to this, that, or the other, but I'm not going to be paying for my expansion. I'm not going to. That's the difference between people who really are in charge of their lives, including the parenting, including the community. Everyone talks about, oh, because there is no community. There is plenty of community around you, and start contributing. Your community is your group of friends, right? But what are you doing? You're having the same conversation for the last 15 years, right? I can tell you how most conversations among women go. So men are shit. It's all about trashing men. It's all about glamorizing one another, never holding ourselves accountable. I could never find myself, I had to drink a lot of wine to be able to go through these conversations, because I couldn't find it in myself to say these things, because I love my husband and I think he's amazing. And as soon as I said something like this, it was, oh, look at you, right? So this is how most women operate. And guess what? I've already left those groups of people and they're still having the same conversations and they're still having a violation warning. Wow, your live is flagged for hate speech. Okay. Right, so we've just been flagged. I don't know whether it's you or me, but maybe I said something too many times. So what I mean by this is a lot of people operate from the same identity that have already outgrown, but for fitting in, or because I know them for such a long time, or because I always did that, I always said that, and then nothing changes and the problems are just piling up. Because another thing about your mental health, your psychology and your personality and the perception of self is the lower you are. So if you're anxiety, depression and all this sort of shame and smallness and ego, you're gripped by the ego, right? So it has you by this, like you have to be right, you can never say your truth, etc. The more limiting and suffocating it becomes, and your life is not able to expand. So you're not able to welcome other people because, again, your reality is subjective and you attract the same thing all the time. You attract the same level of problems. So if you think of yourself as poor or money is hard to get, this is where you're going to stay. If you think of yourself, I'm unlovable, then you're going to attract people who are not even available emotionally. And I understand that for some of us, we need to stay in there for 10 years, 15 years, but that's why marriages break up. Because you meet the person from the level of survival identity, so you are totally unconscious who you've attracted, and then you may be growing. I'm not even talking about, bigger problems, right? You are attracting things, people, and problems according to the level of consciousness you have about yourself and the world, because the level of consciousness determines your view of the world, of yourself, and what you are capable of. So there is no place for new to come if you're still mulling over the old, right? That's why you have the people in therapy for 5 years, 6 years, from different angles, from different modalities, because guess what? Therapists have a business and they're not going to challenge you. The minute I've realized this, I had a fucking breakdown. I am actually participating in the business of keeping people stuck. And that's the reality here. So because we've been told that, well, it's okay to be in therapy all your life. Right, okay, right. Guess what? Your therapist also is very limited. And every therapist operates from the level they've been trained in. One of the reasons I left the profession was because I couldn't talk to people about their soul, their purpose, their bodies. This is so sad. Yes, it is very sad. But I had to eat that fucking humble pie, even though I spent many, many years getting there. And it cost me a lot of sacrifices. I had to do complete 180. Complete 180. And this is why we're having this conversation. Because I couldn't be truthful with myself. And it's like, I couldn't really be this person at home and then listening to a client who was cheating on his wife and he had anxiety and wanting me to treat his anxiety without an ability to address the affair because he was not ready for it, while his nervous system was screaming stress, right? And I saw him for quite a while, I think it was about a year, right? But you cannot expect not to have anxiety or depression if you are violating your values. And that was they were very young marriage, and they had a really small, like, they had a small child together, right? So no wonder if you are acting out from the level of disintegration and the scatteredness, don't expect yourself to be stable and healthy. If you, and trust me, your mind can rationalize every shitty choice you make. Because this is what's the standards are in the society today. What are the standards? We can do whatever we want, right? How's that working out for us? How is that working out for us? What are we showing to our children? But your mind, your socialized lower mind, and your ego will say, I just want to have a bit of fun. I don't feel loved. You can't have a conversation with your spouse and say, I feel like shit, I really need to talk about something. But you are able to have a double life, then no amount of therapy, psychedelics, ayahuasca, drinking the jungle, or whatever, if it's going to help you. How many people do you know like that? There are some public figures who are actually showing us. That's why I love the internet and the social media, because it's all resurfacing. You can see, right? What's healing in therapy is actually the integrity of a therapist. But if you are seeing 30 people a week, which most therapists do, I had a threshold for myself, and it was 21 within 4 days, but then I had 2 days, like 4 days off, right? So I'll really make sure that I could breathe. But that was my capacity, because otherwise I couldn't be present. I would forget things. And again, that was my nervous system letting me know it's too much. You're pushing yourself, you're forcing yourself. And I always took my job very seriously. Everything I do 100%. Whatever that is. Right? I don't care whether it's 3 of you listening or 2 of you listening on the other platform. I'm still putting 100% of this, because this is the knowledge that you already have. And it needs to go out there. We need to wake up to how wise your body is, how flexible your consciousness is, how amazing your mind is if you just do a bit of work on yourself, right? Without relying on therapists, books, coaches, right? So it's all about your nervous system. Again, mark the words, nervous system work is going to be used in business, weight loss, because nervous system decides about everything. It decides your goals. It sabotages the goals that it's not ready for you to achieve. And it determines your identity and who you are and how you move through the world. So if you're not recalibrating every day, if you're not selecting what really is in alignment with your nervous system, you are basically, I don't want to swear, but you get my point, right? You will never achieve your goals. You'll be telling yourself a story, oh, take it easy. Yeah, be gentle with yourself. But guess what? Your soul and the ideas you have and who you truly are, if you're not expressing it, is not going to leave you alone. Because we don't have ideas, ideas have us. So you will become restless if you're not expressing who you truly are. So you're not developing your authenticity, which is the highest vibration on the scale, being who you are, telling your truth, being honest with yourself, being able to move through the world balanced and not acting out from the ego, so acting out from your higher self, you can say, in other words. You will be anxious, you will be depressed, You will be frustrated. You will be unhappy. Because all your soul wants is to be expressed. All your consciousness, your particular profile of consciousness, wants to experience itself, wants to be expressed in the world. And you need to embody your true self, because otherwise it's a circus and you're playing different roles of different animals in the same circus. You're masking your true selves. You pretend that you say different things you don't feel, so you don't have integrity, you don't have capacity. And it's mask after mask. You don't know whether you're coming or going. You don't know who you are. So it's very, very destabilizing. If you don't center yourself around the authentic axis, right? If you don't balance that energy, this is the addiction thing. You go into try to suppress it because you've been told it's not worth it. Like in the history of humanity, our toxic society have told you that you only it's worth doing for productivity, for money, and so we don't play with ourselves anymore. We don't wonder, right? We all pretend to be adults, and then look what happens when you give people alcohol. It's unleashed sometimes, right? So people are suppressing themselves for such a long time that when they get alcohol and their prefrontal cortex is inhibited, i.e. your logical, your rational and all that crap, right? It unleashes because it's the power unleashes, and it has sometimes it's very ugly. Some people are very angry, some people cry. This is because they've been suppressing themselves for such a long time. Right? And people demonize alcohol. Oh, it's the spirit. It's a sedative. It's a sedative. It used to be used as a sedative. It numbs the pain of inability to be yourself, to express yourself. And I mean that in every single sense, in your relationships, in your jobs. How many of you have jobs that really represent who you are truly? Look at the jobs people have, right? If that's soul destroying. It sucks the soul out of you. And the real frustration comes, and at the lowest of the map of consciousness, you've got the shame, depression, and apathy. So you sort of gave up on life, and you have gave up on your soul. So I don't want you to think that if you are in a darkish place, if you are struggling, even though I don't like this word, if you are in this space of you feel that the darker side is it's getting darker and darker, and it's more and more difficult to even cope and manage, and you mask more and more, because in depression people just keep masking and keep pretend the numbness, and they're masking the numbness. The numbness is very uncomfortable. I want you to know that it gets worse if it's not attended to with your attention and with yourself. And as much as some things can help and medication can stabilize you, that's not the answer. You need to work on your nervous system and with your nervous system. If you want to engage with my work, go on innerworkmanual.com. Right? And the second option, when you want my involvement, this is the last week I'm advertising this at this price because my capacity is reaching the threshold, and that price is going to be valid only for the next week. Otherwise, I'm just adding another zero at the end, just so you know. So I just want you to know that you may be thinking, oh, I'll just Google it. I'll just do that. There is a new understanding emerging. I even complimented someone on these teachings because a lot of people will give you quick fixes. There's the 3 ways I read to regulate your nervous system, right? Your unique and particular map that you need in order to move through your nervous system. You have a very particular history of your nervous system. So all your experiences, because your nervous system is a feeler, your nervous system is a feeler. Your body experiences everything. That's why you are so disconnected from your body. That's why you avoid being in your body. Because your body brought you trouble and pain, so you're just cutting off yourself from the pain. And the history is very specific. The profile of the pain is very specific, right? And you might be thinking, oh, what's in the past and in the past, that's in the past. You need to process stuff that you've pushed away. If you worked on your past, that's great. And if you worked on it enough, then you can move up. But if you haven't, and most of you haven't, the average time, and I used to ask clients, the average time for people from the moment they thought I might need therapy to come to therapy was 5 years. And people didn't come to therapy unless they couldn't get out of the house, out of bed, they couldn't go to work. Because people really underestimate the experiences they've been through and they intellectualize them. And if you have a very creative brain and really strong intellect-based ego, you can intellectualize absolutely everything. And you will know every single theory about it, right? And you'll have the explanation according, if you go to a CBT therapist or cognitive behavioral therapy, then you're going to understand your experience according to their framework, right? Cognitions, behaviors, etc., etc. Again, feelings, no. If you go to, let's say, psychoanalysis, then you're going to spend 15 years on a couch with a person who's allowing you to free associate and say everything that comes to mind, and then you leave more confused than you came. And then after all, because in psychoanalysis the therapist is the expert, right? So what I'm saying is that the work that can be done with the help of others has its limitations. It can orient you and help you to be comfortable doing self-inquiry, because for a lot of people it's like, right? And I get that. I used to be actually surprised that so many people want to come and see a stranger. And some people were a lot older than me, and I was feeling really like, they've been through life, so why do they ask me? Right? And a lot of people would say, what would you do if you were me? Because you've been so used to this idea that the answers are outside of you, that there are experts. You listen to the experts. Even though if you have half the brain and you put any research about the same thing from a decade, you're going to see that every single narrative there is, explanation, hypothesis, conclusions, there are very, very few things that are not this, contradict each other. And majority of the research is done on university students. Maybe not now because of the internet, right? But everything we know about psychology. There are some universal classics, but it's very limited to the culture. So your mind will be very different. That's why I like when sometimes, like when there's some content from America, people would comment, I'm too European for this. Because your belief system, what's allowed, your standards are shaped by the culture, shaped by the system you are in, right? You grow up in. Not only that, but look at your neighbors where you were growing up. There was a lot of differences in between you and your neighbors, weren't they? So your belief system is shaped by others, and you need to investigate. So your nervous system is encoded with that knowledge. So you really need to become the student of your nervous system and your mind. How is this constructed? And guess what? And then you need to go into your inner space and deconstruct every single belief you have about yourself, brick by brick. Sometimes you smash it, sometimes you gently deconstruct it, but there's no way around it. The more you run away from this truth, the more frustrated you will be. Because if you're listening to this, you already know. You have the knowing. I like to say you have the knowing. Because you wouldn't be listening to this because it would be so irrelevant. Have you looked into brain spotting trauma therapy? I haven't looked into this specific approach, technique, modality, or whatever that is. But brain is just part of the story. Brain is an extension of your nervous system. And the way the brain works is a consequence of what happens in your nervous system and in your body. If your body is under threat, your brain, for example, your frontal lobe, so your prefrontal cortex, will go offline because then the logical, the rational is irrelevant. So I don't believe in rewiring of the brain. And every single meditation that is rewiring the brain includes the breath and moving your breath alongside the spine, up and down, and controlling your brain, which moves your consciousness. So that's not really rewiring of the brain. And now people put gadgets on themselves. You can measure the activity on the brain just the same way you can measure the activity of your heart, which is a separate brain, by the way. And your gut is a separate brain. And the map of consciousness was built based on the measurement of tension in the muscles. So your body is speaking, your brain does interpretation, and your mind, that's another level, is as your psychology is rooted in your physiology. So your mind is also, I'm 3 years and 3 months sober, rewired my brain, exactly. You stop tormenting your body and miracles happen, right? So your mind is also rooted in your brain, so it has layers. So anything that you just take a fraction of and you're not looking at the flow and holistic thing, it's very limiting. Although I just want to say this about the brain spotting thing. You do need things for orientation. So be led by what's resonating with you, because there are different ways to hack into yourself. There are different ways to start. There are different ways to start understanding it. There's different terminology for the same thing depending who you're listening to. So yes, but question absolutely everything and capture the essence of the mechanism, because every single teaching, every single paradigm, every single framework is just using different words for the same thing, right? So quantum field It's used as consciousness, the field of consciousness, right? We're not going to go into quantum mechanics, but there is a structure to your inner reality that you need to be curious about and tap into that, and you will be a powerhouse. You will be in charge of how you move through the world. Own it. Take ownership of the wonderful, the best piece of technology there is on earth, which is your nervous system. All your behaviors all your choices that you are making every day endlessly are the extension of the state of your nervous system. They're not personality traits. They're not like including addictions, for good and bad, right? So look at yourself how do you feel? What kind of emotions do you have in your body when you're on holiday, chilling, not working, and everything is great? Your state, right? Then you're a different person. You're lovely to everyone. You just chilled. You don't care about anything. You don't think about your spreadsheet at work. You don't think about whatever, right? Think about how you feel on Monday morning. You know, yesterday being on holiday. So that's your perception is doing that, because your mind is interpreting the state, right? It's really simple. Another damaging narrative, which I want to smash here with a hammer, is it's difficult. I've been through a lot. The more you've been through, the stronger you fucking are. Full stop. Mind over matter. Of course. Precisely. You know, in the past, I come from Poland. I don't know whether you know, I lost my mountain, overdose, and recovered my mental state. Whoa. Right? So people overcome a lot. I come from Poland. I was born into post-communistic reality. So that was a belief system. Communism was the belief system. I was 6 when it ended, so they didn't manage to program me. But there were people who bought into the thing, who bought into this belief system, and there were people who didn't. We were relatively safe because it was in the middle of nowhere, so we didn't have to in any way participate. However, my father was a vet, right? And he wasn't a vet of chihuahuas. He was a vet for big animals who were the source of life for people, for families, and food, right? Horses, cows, pigs, right? And so he was a god. That's so interesting. Thank you. My father was God in the community because he was really important to the community, right? It was a villagey kind of environment. But when he came home, he was a raging alcoholic. I don't know why I said this. There must be a point. Where was I going with it? Let me think for a second. I don't know. Maybe I was trying to get to the point, which I was thinking about earlier, that you never know what goes on in a person's life. And oh yeah, the belief system, right? So if he was God within the community, he was God at home, right? But the horrible God. And we were supposed to respond to that. So he was violent, right? But I never bought into this. So when my father actually drank himself to death, I wasn't even sad. I had to pretend that I'm sad, right? They divorced before that. So you never know what people feel and why they behave in the way they behave. And you never know the truth. So the only truth you can really own is yours. And I was a child, I didn't have any choices. I had to do what I'm being told to do, even though I disagree with it, but I played a role, right? Because to belong as a child, you don't have any choices. Did that determine my choices in life? Not really, because I was able to build, I never thought about every man as a, you know, disowning. So even manipulating your belief system now. So I'm glad all those other narratives were not around, and I could go with my thoughts and my true feelings about the situation, because now they're telling you, oh, this person has trauma, so you need to give them your time and you need to be understandable and empathic. To what point? To what point? That's one of the questions, right? To me, there's no difference in this and the pressure from the community. Oh, your father died, even though he was raging alcoholic at home, but he was so protected and so he was so respected by the community that I had to pretend, right? No, you're not supposed to override your feelings. And only because of that, I was able not to bring this shit into my marriage and my family. And I decided, whatever happened to me, and I had a lot of other different things happen to me, that shit ends with me. And I'm building my life, not dragging the shit after me. So I couldn't really understand. And then I left Poland, lived in the UK, became a therapist. Obviously, I was a cleaner, a nanny, put myself through uni, whatever, right? I never acted out from the belief system from outside because there's too many of them. And no one has the experience. Your nervous system, if you are being led by your nervous system is resilient, organic, but it needs your attention and it needs your integrity, right? You can fuck up, of course you will, right? You can make mistakes, but every time I betrayed myself and betrayed my feeling, there was a cost to that. There was a cost to that. And who paid the bill? It's a hidden tax for not knowing your nervous system. What you can't do, what you can't say, playing a role of a good daughter, good father, good son, right? Like a lot of people, oh, because, the father used to be Assad, but, he's my father, so I forgave him. Right, but your nervous system didn't. Again, we're being told to override our nervous system all the times. Or just be happy and positive and everything will be fine, and just manifest. No, simply not the case. And there's a question, what if a awakened person is attacked by a partner who is on another level and I can not get it? Physically attacked? If it's a physical attack, obviously you need to protect yourself. The only way you can influence and the only way you can control, not in discussion. Well, the standards for discussion need to change. So if you've explained yourself once and that person is not listening, we need to have a hygiene around discussions. That's why I'm not into debates, because it's just too dogs barking at each other. So you need to claim your standards, whatever they are, if you don't have any, establish them. So listen, how about if I say things I want to say and then you say things about whatever the subject is, so always keep it to the subject, and it's obviously very difficult. Do not underestimate or overestimate or really determine where this person is on a level. Don't treat anyone, don't think like, oh, they're not on my level. Always think about the potential, what kind of example you will be in this discussion. I know it's difficult to do, especially if it's a partner, but once you regulate your nervous system and center yourself and you're like, cool, then you are not able to be provoked. Because remember, the ego, the lower consciousness, so the lower mind level, thinks that we have to win discussions. No, we have to own our truth and express it once. And then you're going to see that their reaction, their response will be different. Because a lot of the things in arguments and discussions are about playing ping pong with who's being right, who's being wrong, right? You are doing this, you are doing this, you are doing this. And trust me, I'm a professional ping pong player. I've been married for 22 years. And depends on my emotional state, again, the context for the nervous system. If I'm aware, rested, balanced, grounded, I'm not even, you can't provoke me. But if I haven't slept well, or I'm a bit hangovered, yeah, it doesn't take much, right? Or if it's raining for 2 days and I think I'm back in England again, and now I'm in Spain, and my body is like, oh my God, this is going to rain for 6 months now, right? Because that's subconscious mind. There's a point. You cannot be provoked. It causes aggression. Ooh. Right? There's some deeper work to be done. What if you express your feelings and the other person will not listen, then you're frustrated? Again, the thing about truth and expressing yourself is once you own it, express it, then you can't expect anyone to. Look how long it takes for people to own their truth. It's just this, like, in relationship, depends, it exposes your relationship really. But if you've expressed your feelings, then you've expressed them because you're doing that for yourself. You're not doing that to manipulate anyone or anything or control reality. You've expressed it for your own hygiene, and like, you didn't express it like, or feel what I feel, or rescue me from the way I feel. That's codependency in a relationship. That's codependency. You affirming codependency rather than a partnership. A lot of people do that with crying. And I'm not even talking about relationships. This is what kids do, right? They have a tantrum. And a lot of adults do as well. They have a tantrum because your number of your birth, your year you were born doesn't really determine your emotional age, but it is determined by your level of consciousness and whether you've got lower emotions or higher emotions. And when you live in your survival identity, you have no access to the higher emotions. So, for example, love. Like, a lot of people say, I love him, or I love her, or I love my children, right? Until they annoy you. Because the real test of your level of consciousness, whether you live from your heart, when love is limitless and you don't expect anyone to do anything or be anything in order for you to love them. This is how you test where you are. Are you living from your fear, shame, depression? You can't open your heart then. A lot of meditations is about opening your heart. If your nervous system is dysregulated and you live in survival identity, lower emotional states, you can't open your heart, i.e. your heart won't open because you need to be safe with yourself, present, build awareness and presence for yourself. So you are a safe person to yourself. You can't be really hating your body and expecting your heart to open. You can't be hating yourself, thinking of yourself in a demeaning way, I'm stupid, or inflated ego way, oh, I'm just amazing, oh, I'm just so unique, I'm so special. Everyone is stupid, but I'm just, I'm very unique, I like it, right? So both inflated or deflated ego, or you the victim, or you just the most amazing person walking the planet, then that you're operating from the ego, and if you're approaching any relationship from this level, tell me if that's true love, because I don't think it is. Or you love your children unless they, make choices you don't want them to make, etc., right? So map of consciousness, absolutely everything. Becoming conscious is just the most amazing feeling. It's uncomfortable at first, but it is the most amazing feeling. If you want to engage with this work, DM me your email address or go on learned. I needed that explanation. Lovely. Or go on Inner Work Manual. There are 2 ways to engage with my work, without my engagement and with my engagement. And as I said, the second level is very cheap for now, but it won't be that cheap for long. So that's your opportunity to become a student of yourself. There will be a lot of people doing the same work because it's the wisdom and the knowledge of the nervous system. So it's not really so now a marketing expert could come in and just package it differently, and that's what a lot of people are doing, but in a very fragmented way. You're very welcome. A lot of people are doing in a very fragmented way, but this paradigm will be the next big thing. This is the evolution of humans. This is your evolution, because you are already evolving beyond the story of your past. You are already beyond the ideas. Look about the reality, the ideas about the world we had 5 years ago. Right? And it's the same way with your nervous system, because individually people are waking up again, because it's happening outside of the system. So mainstream media is not writing about this, and it's all being mocked and spiritual. I never thought of it this way. Thank you. You're very welcome, right? So no one is going to come in and actually own it, because it challenges absolutely everything. Paradigm, scientific paradigm, psychology. A lot of businesses are based on the idea that you know nothing about yourself. Now your identity is flimsy and fragmented, and they're working really hard to fragment it further, to feed you fear, because once you're in fear, once you're scared, right, for your life, for your family, fear is very powerful. Another thing is guilt. It's a very powerful manipulating emotion. Think about when you want your children when they're small, when you want them to do something. Well, how do you motivate them to do what you want? Right? Sometimes you have to say, if you don't do that, I'm going to take this away. So you're manipulating them in a way, and if it's done in a loving way, whatever. But that's the dynamic of human interaction. That's the dynamic of the whole advertising industry, right? For 2 minutes, you watch an advert and you go to the next day and you think, that looked nice, right? Because they tapped into your identity, they tapped into your uncertainty, they tapped into your consciousness or lack of it, right? So if you're unconscious, you're just going to be like a robot, you're just going to be buying things. Do you know how many people I worked with who, that's the thing that there's a lot of those behaviors are soothing behaviors. So if you're stressed and dysregulated, like drinking, smoking, shopping, eating, carbs and stuff, it's very regulating for the first 20 minutes for your nervous system. That's why you do it. And that's why a lot of people drink before they have, spliff or something, right? Because this is how they come down, and it's true, right? But a lot of people who, let's say, didn't have a lot of funds, but they would daily go on Amazon and they would create a list of things they're going to buy. And just putting them in a basket was enough to ground themselves. And then for another 30 days, they'll be thinking, oh my God, next time I'm paid, I'm going to get those things. So the dopamine, there's so much talk about dopamine. It's not the whole story. You are you are an ecosystem. There's dopamine, there's oxytocin, there are different substances. And in my course, I talk about adrenaline and cortisol, which are really powerful, because if you're adrenalized enough, your energy is limitless for a decade and a half. But then you get burnout. So they harvest your energy, they harvest from your nervous system. So this kind of work and knowledge, and I have no label, right? So I work for myself, and no institution is going to come in and tell you this, because that threatens the very status quo of any institution or industry which is based on the idea that you need them. So you need their product. You need what they're selling to you. You are dependent. Right? That's the old paradigm. So I want you to start really cutting yourself off from any paradigm that is existing at the moment, and start really taking ownership of your inner space, so you're not being manipulated, and of your nervous system, because it's like the less attention you pay to your nervous system, the worse it gets. I talk about it in my course because I'm coping, I'm managing. There will come a point, there will come a crisis where you're going to need the most reliable, the most energetic version of yourself. And you want to be that way because you don't want to create regrets for yourself. And the best way to live your life is to become a maker of your life, rather than like a paper boat, or in white waters, which is life, right? There's different weather, different people, things are changing, systems are changing. A lot of you don't live where you were born, like people are changing countries, so you're adapting, adjusting, right? So really be selective. Are you disempowering yourself with the narrative or empowering yourself with the narrative? And this is my mission, to really discover who you are, teach you who you are, but I can't do it without your commitment. You see, it's impossible. I can give you all this knowledge and this context, and we can talk about this shit from different perspectives, but at the end of the day, if there's no commitment in you, oh right, I need to really investigate myself. And the beauty of this work is that first you listen. So you don't have to do anything. You don't have to, there's no preparation. You meet yourself where you are. And then you make changes to your reality, to your environment that you want, because there are probably a lot of different things that are really lovely about your life. So you want to keep them because they do make you happy. So this is not a complete reshuffle. Only if you want to, right? You can then, if you've been thinking about moving to another country because, I don't know, you want to travel or you just want to move to another country, then you will be empowered to do that. You just will be empowered to act on your dreams, to act on your plan that you may come up with. Or you stop caring about the plan because you know that everything will be all right. Because look, your nervous system has brought you where you are. It has. This is how strong you are. You've been through an enormous amount of things and you're always okay. Because human spirit, human soul is indestructible. You are indestructible. You have your strengths and limitations, yes you are. I have a lot of them. But I also have gifts, and you have gifts which you're not using because you've been told it's useless, pointless, or that you don't have them. But your mind is probably, you have some skills, or your hands can do something I have no idea how to do. For example, I don't understand numbers. I mean, right? I'm useless at numbers. Does it make me less than anyone? No. I understand other things, so everyone has their own unique powers and gifts to act on. Practice, cultivate. This is how you actually improve your mental health. Because once, a lot of the times, anxiety and depression dissipate while you start paying attention to yourself. While you actually make a decision that, okay, you might be anxious sometimes, but that's not a disorder, and you just need to find out what's the meaning behind your anxiety. That's all you need to be doing, right? I get anxious sometimes. This is usually when I don't do what I'm supposed to be doing, or I promise myself that I'm going to do, right? I could easily be diagnosed with ADHD. Easily, easy peasy. I flirted with the idea for some time, back 7 years ago. But then I decided actually no, because I really need to see how I can use it to my advantage, because it's unexpressed creativity. And if I'm sitting like this and expressing my essence and talking to you and connecting with people, then I don't have ADHD. Suddenly, when I'm talking about a thing that interests me and I understand from a lot of different levels, I don't have the ADHD. Suddenly I can focus for 2.5 hours with no problem. Off we go, right? But if you ask me to clean my house, I'll have ADHD. I will procrastinate. I will stop and start. I'll go around and I'll be looping, going around in circles, because it bores me to death. I can play with it, I can play some music, and I can really say, all right, you're doing it, you have to, right? The same with cooking. I love cooking, and it grounds me, it helps me, it's like my meditation. I don't need recipes, I play with it, I add different spices, I don't care, right? I don't care about, if I like it, then that's it. I'm not thinking, oh, is my husband gonna like it? I don't care. I like it and it's nice. Then I'm happy. I express myself, express my creativity. And then other than that, I can talk, as you can see. And I was always, since I was very little, that was my ability, right? I could talk. I'm not medicated, no. I meet the criteria for ADHD. But I never got diagnosed on purpose. I'm a therapist by trade, and I have a degree in psychology, so I know a lot about these things, and I refuse to be labelled because they label different tendencies of our mind and recycle them, and at the moment ADHD is very trendy is the word, because I tell you why, because ADHD is unexpressed creativity, and it's also it's a creative anxiety. Okay, anyone who is creative will tell you that they have anxiety about creating. The society we have constructed and we live in, so I'm talking about Western world, is not concerned with children expressing their creativity, is concerned with the grades and tests, etc. And people are being put into boxes, so therefore that natural expression of the soul, you can say, and that anxiety goes haywire, right? So you're physiologically speaking, you are anxious, your body's anxious because it's not expressing itself. Plus, you're being told that it's a condition, it's a disorder, so the narrative really, really matters. That's why if you take one thing away from this life today, do not treat labels as part of your identity. Use them to ground you, to anchor you, to orient you. Okay, this is what I'm dealing with here. That's my tendencies. So how do I tame it, and how do I use it? And if you reframe things, that's one of the things that happens in therapy, reframing. How do you increase your dopamine, please? Dopamine is a molecule of pursuit, so you need to be doing something. You need to find replacements for doing. And for me, that's writing, walking, very intense walking. I go on a hike every morning for about an hour or two, without my phone, just with music in my ears, and I tire my body, right? On empty stomach, and I tire my body, and I come back in a completely different state. If I'm awake and stay in bed for about 10 minutes, I will be riddled with anxiety within 15 minutes, and I will get up and be completely all over the place for minimum of 3 hours until I exhaust myself and collapse with a phone or something. That has not happened in months, just because I'm very, very aware of this. Another thing that is very helpful is a hot shower, because it's a sensory experience. So a hot shower, a cold shower, if you are into this, I can't stand cold showers, but it's a sensory experience for the nervous system, and it's grounding, right? I live by the sea, so I swim, obviously in the summer. I do different sort of physical activity and calm my body, then my mind calms down. Another word for biohacking, so lots of fresh air, sunlight. I don't wear sunglasses unless I'm driving, and I live in Spain, so I could wear sunglasses all the time. You're very welcome. Unless I'm driving, because if I get the sun into my eyes, I don't believe the sun is dangerous. I believe it programs us as well, and is a lovely energy. So I biohack my system by that, and then all my ADHD symptoms dissolve and dissipate. The trick is to learn what your nervous system needs. It's about regulating. Don't be too concerned about one thing. So people are obsessed with dopamine or whatever. It's just it's the fraction of the thing. If you're a woman, I don't know if you are, think oxytocin, touch, movement, dancing. You have a lot, like oxytocin, it's a lot more powerful than dopamine. So you think feedback, right? So your nervous system, your body needs a feedback loop. You need to give it feedback. That's why the most regulating thing for the nervous system is anything that sends a message to your nervous system, to your body first, and then your body, because your body is feeding the brain, not the other way around. Your So you first do it like any rhythmical movement, any sort of free movement, rhythmical, right? So any like you need to think about soothing. Men are different. Men are wired differently when it comes to that. The body that need that really intense things like cold showers and all of that shit. Especially if you have trauma, so if your ADHD is caused by the trauma, so because they overlap a lot, CPTSD, it's just recycled shit all the time, it's just different with different letters. Then you need to think, and if you're a woman only, you need to think cannot cause spikes of cortisol. So intense exercise, not so much, because there's no difference for your body. Your body doesn't understand words or goals. So if you want to, I don't know, run a marathon, there's no difference for your body whether a tiger is chasing it or you're training for a marathon, because for your body, a tiger is chasing it. So if a tiger is chasing you 3 hours a day because you're training for a marathon, you're going to live in survival mode. How do you motivate yourself to do things? Then I find it hard to do things. Then please. You are a woman. How old are you? I would need to know how old are you. I will answer this question after the conflict, but I'll answer the question about ADHD first. How do you motivate yourself? It really doesn't matter how old you are. I'm going to answer this way. The trick for anything, but that was a question from someone else. I'm in my 40s and symptoms are more with age. They are, right? Very interesting, cool, right? So, you need to know about a state of the nervous system which is called, now the buzzword is flow, right? Basically, your nervous system goes either sympathetic or parasympathetic state. Not 17, just 2 states, which are then further sort of individualized. But your body is either safe or unsafe. If your body had been living in an unsafe situation, emotionally, mentally, physically, psychologically, sexually, etc., then that is what remembers. This is what causes the trauma, CPTSD, all the letters, all the diagnosis, okay? Right. Why we are healing and what we're healing? We're healing this state, and where are we going? Where are we calibrating? So we are teaching our body safety, because our body doesn't know that danger is gone, so we need to teach it. So in order for us to be protected by our body, we go into the survival mode, survival identity. So fight, flight, freeze mode, depression, which is hide mode, right? So you disappear. But these are protective. They're protecting you from danger. Once once you're doing your healing, you're healing the fact that your body has never felt safe. So you're teaching your body safety through all those different modalities, breathing, whatever, right? ADHD is part of that, and CPD is whatever. So what you need to be doing is thinking about moving your body from sympathetic state, stress response, survival identity, and all those conditions and disorders that you're being told you have, to move your body into parasympathetic mode, parasympathetic state. So when your body feels safe, social, connected, another name for it, rest, digest, rejuvenate. So this is a state which now they call flow, which exists in your nervous system. Look at children. Most children are in this state. They feel safe, they feel free. You don't have to motivate them for playing, do you? So this is what I'm getting at here. Once you learn how to be in rest, digest, regenerate, safe, social, parasympathetic response, you teach your body that it's possible, you recalibrate your body for safety, you don't respond to the drama around you, right? You don't need motivation, because that's the difference between force and power. Because if you are in lower survival identity, you need to be using a lot of force to do anything, and that's why people burn out. When you're in flow, so when you expand your identity, when you recalibrate your nervous system for safety, you make choices to get there and eliminate choices not to be provoked, not to be triggered, because people are the biggest trigger, nothing else. Then your rational brain comes down, energy, inspiration, creativity comes online. Then you can open your heart, then you can flow. So I no longer have to motivate myself. I just do what I want, and I just do it. I don't overthink shit. Overthinking is anxiety. I don't second guess myself anymore. And that was the best work I used to do as a therapist, because at the beginning I was like, right, so how do I respond to, right? But then I started being so comfortable in this role, and I understood that I'm not really, it's not what I say, it's how I'm being. This is where I did my best work for people and with people, when I stopped thinking and really being the feeler and the container for people so they can freely self-express. This is why I left the profession. This is when I left the profession as well, because I realized that it's not what I say, it's how my nervous system is being. And I can't really be helpful to people if I'm chronically exhausted, because I have no capacity. If you're chronically exhausted, you have no capacity for flow, creativity. There is no energy because your energy is blocked. This is the money blocks, this is all the blockages, this is the muscle tension, right? So it's the CPTSD and all the trauma is all about getting your body from, in my course, I call it the green state, right? Because the biochemistry behind it is also very meaningful. But then it's like how it's like people asking people for their diets, right? My body decides what I eat and when I eat. I don't get to do that, because I listen to my body and I work with my nervous system every day. I can't eat like my husband. I don't want to, first of all, because my body doesn't need this kind of thing, right? He's a fitness freak, I'm not. So we have a completely different diet. I listen to my body. When I'm going through different cycles, obviously as a woman, listen, I'll be eating cucumbers, wine, and with chocolate at once, and that's fine because that happens once, and that's fine. And then for 3 days, I'm fasting and I'm fucking juicing beetroot. So I listen to my body and I go with the flow, and I get to the flow by listening to my nervous system. And then I don't have ADHD. I do have ADHD when someone tells me what to do, and I have to be somewhere at this particular time. I have to wake up at a certain time or go to bed at a certain time. This is where my ADHD comes in. ADHD comes in. Me too. Exactly. You asked a very important question. You said about, right? So the flow state, there's a lot of, this is what I teach you in my course about the green state. Sadly, not a lot of people know this state. People don't even know it exists. The body remembers. So it's not really, you're not learning anything, you're unlearning stress. You're not teaching your body, you're remembering how it feels not to be stressed. But we've normalized being stressed. You know that, like, even the amount of caffeine we drink, you can get your heart rate up by drinking too much coffee. Everything that you do to yourself matters. Everything you put into your body, once you're regulated and stabilized, that's fine, right? Then this is a very different thing. But people are doing all these different things to their nervous system, and they're expecting to be motivated, energized, not exhausted. And that's madness. This is what the world we've created. Can you see how important that work is? Because it's just a fact of life at this point. At this point, it's a fact of life that without your personal commitment to yourself, honesty to yourself, what work needs to be done and how, and you decide the rate, you decide the pace. Once you build certain capacity in your nervous system, you can really, like, first of all, you're going to expand and feel greater. So a lot of your thoughts that are created from the lower consciousness, you don't even, like, you'll be like, oh my God, I used to think that, oh my God, that's not right, because you will become a different person. Once you upgrade your consciousness with your inner awareness, a lot of these things will dissipate. So you need to ask your question, how attached you are to this victimhood reality. Because there's a lot of payoff, as I said, right? And also, look at your commitment when you are working for someone else for money. But then you refuse to working on yourself with yourself. So I like to think of it as a contract with myself. And I made a fucking deal with myself. That I work for myself, on myself, for however long I need. Because the truth is, once I work with my nervous system, then my energy, look at me, I've been here 2.5 hours. My energy doesn't even go down. Because your energy is limitless. Your focus is limitless. Right? And in that contract, put it on your wallpaper and say, I work for myself. The job title is to get to know your higher self. Another description for the flow state, the parasympathetic response of the nervous system, is the higher self. And what do I need to do? This is my favorite thing. Just show up for myself with whatever I need every day. Don't think about the past. Whatever happens yesterday, I don't care. What can I do today? It's raining, so I can't go on my walk. What can I do then? Do something. I have I'm very selective. If something doesn't suit my intention, because my intention is now to live in this state full time. That's why I avoid things like a plague now. And people say, oh, you're not seeing many people now. And I'm like, yes. Right? In terms of friends. Because once you stabilize, you become so protective of this. And obviously it takes rewriting your story, because we've been told that trauma is so important to process. Of course it is, but I've also come to the conclusion that you can get stuck in healing for many years. And I was also, I was a therapist, so that, but also it's a business, right? So I had to let go of that idea of that I need to heal all the time. And they tell you, oh, it takes many years. Well, who decides that? And you don't have to do every single thing. So it's up to you, right? It's the deal with yourself. Like, that's enough. So maybe I've done the healing. Now I'm going to act out the new expanded version of me, the healed version of me. And not a lot of people will do that these days, because it became a competition. Who's got bigger trauma? Who's got what's it called, diagnosis, right? I've got this, or I've got this, and who are you seeing, and this therapist, and this paradigm, and this modality, and we call it progressiveness to the point of madness. That's not progression, that's regression. Because your belief systems are being you're not experiencing anything, your body's not experiencing anything, you intellectualize everything. Different paradigms, you're reading different books, etc. And you're just making yourself more confused, because, quite frankly, the understanding of most people, even healers, which I observe on social media, I'm not going to go into that because I don't like ripping people apart. I could, but I'm not going to do that. But actually, again, the people are using your ignorance about how powerful you actually are. And as just with I've been through a lot of stuff when I was a child, but when I was pregnant, my intention was, I'm not going to give you trauma. And I did that, even though a lot has happened to me. I didn't have resources. I wasn't a therapist then. I had a degree in psychology already, right? But I was able to build a healthy, stable home, family life, and family without being in therapy for 15 years. By being in a different country, English is not my first language. So if I could do it, I believe anyone can. I truly, truly believe that anyone can do it. And I didn't do yoga, I didn't have teachers, I didn't have resources. My only resource was me, my heart and my nervous system, and the power of intention. That shit that happened when I was a child is not going with me into my new life. And I have a daughter who's 16. No, we don't have arguments every day. No, my home is peaceful. My home is peaceful. We are spontaneous. We talk every day a lot. But I have boundaries, right? I don't have the time now. No, we're going to do it later. No, I'm not your taxi driver. If you can go somewhere else, if you can go somewhere, I haven't done it by being a people pleaser. I've done it by taking responsibility for my role and expressing my truth. So I'm not resentful, because a lot of parents are very resentful. Oh, I've been through a lot, and my children are very lucky and whatever, right? I'm very glad my daughter's lucky, because she's not going to have to spend another 30 fucking years pulling this thing apart. And I'm telling you, you don't have to. if you have this drive, because I know a lot of people do have this drive, because I see it. I don't have to, I see the feedback in my comments. I see the wisdom. Because guess what? Yeah, you're ready to expand your identity. When to stop healing and start living, don't fit in the matrix society anymore. Well, you're ready for an upgrade. You've upgraded. You're there, right? So engage with my work on the basis of what is your need. It does sound to me like you would need some orientation, but maybe you want to do the course first, right? So it that like the majority of the work is done, because what is also happening a lot of the times is that people, they already have the knowing that it's time for them to move on, but they will cling on to their survival identity, and they'll keep going back to the same patterns and keep checking, oh, am I ready to let go, am I ready to this, right? Unless you start choosing the future, your past will be haunting you. Unless you intentionally every day, just like brushing your teeth, you work on reshuffling your self to the center of your universe, which you are, and prioritize yourself and your needs, you're going to be stuck in the past and in the healing mode and in therapy, in the reading mode, in the intellectualizing mode. Now, with all the resources that we have now, well, you can spend, yeah, because guess what? Your ego will never have enough. Because your ego doesn't want you to grow. Your ego will never have enough. Another paradigm. Oh, have you heard about this one? People love novel. People love different fancy names. I can't believe that, because I don't know, maybe that's me being Polish, you know, I ate the same food all my life. I don't know, but people don't have the judgment and the discernment anymore what's good to them. It's all about the ego versus identity now, and what to do with the rest of my life. So this is why I don't specify, when you have my involvement in the course, I don't specify the result, because result is, it will come from you. What do you want to achieve? And I will work for you with where you're going, right? So the first layer, the £111 course, is to stabilize yourself, teach yourself about your nervous system, and really choosing and sort of ground yourself. And stabilization is the best, right? Because it's a very new way of being for a lot of people and a new paradigm. And they don't want my involvement, which is fine. This is why I did the course, right? But then the second package is when I work for you and with you and where you're going. So we're not working with somebody with the grounding, because you seem to be very grounded, for example, and you've mentioned the ego work. So this is another level, because once you're ready to face your ego, that means you're ready to be honest with yourself, and I can orient you and help you in the process. But it sounds like on the scale of consciousness, you're pretty high up. For anyone who is interested, we can also have a chat about what your needs are on the telephone before you decide to buy the package. So DM me your email address, and then we'll arrange a phone call. It's a half-an-hour conversation. What you need, where you're going, where your identity is, what you're struggling with, shedding the old self, not being really sure how to proceed with what, the fear of doing that, being really destabilized with the, like once you start growing, and breathing and telling your truth to yourself, you're really scared about the relationships you have in your life. You're really frightened about, oh my God, what are they going to think? Are they going to love me? Are they going to still like me, right? So there's a lot of fear in expansion if you're not calibrating your nervous system according to this intention of being bigger, being different, ha ha ha. Gotcha. Then there's a lot of fear. Yes, true. So there's a lot of fear about my relationships, right? And so you are scared to lose them. That's why a lot of people get stuck. But there's a process behind it, and there's a way to recalibrate your nervous system that's very specific to you, etc. It's just another level of work, right? But the energy is already coming through for you, I can see. So because your thoughts are not coming from the system, your thoughts are coming from the depths of you. That's the difference. This is how to recognize, because the lower mind will identify itself, the ego will identify itself with the thought. So you think a thought and you think it must be true. While the higher mind, when you're slightly higher up, you will have a discernment, because it will be attached to the feeling in your body, feeling of expansiveness, and it will not be fear-based. So you'll not be scared by the thought you're having. It will be your intuition. So this is how to make that discernment, which you can't really think about these things when you live in survival. So for those of you who live in survival, that's one level, but there's a lot of expansion after. So don't think of it as, this is what I have some content around this, because like people think, oh, therapy is the best thing that happened to me in my life, or I don't know what I'm going to do without you. What? Like, I used to hear that a lot. I love coming here and talking to you. Listen, your life is so much more than your fears, than your labels, than your anxiety, than your depression. You've got so many years ahead of you, and they can be wonderful if you just do a bit of work. And work is not the whole story, because where we're getting here is for you to breathe and live and be happy. I'm going to wrap up. I don't know how long have I been here. Oh my goodness. I feel like I'm still shedding, been doing the work for 10 months now in hermit mode. There is your excuse. Yeah, listen. Again, I can't really... I can't really do anything about that for you, because again, you have a free will. You have a free will. And it's yours. It's free for you to use, not me. So I'll never push anyone to do anything, or I'll never try to sell my work. My work is selling itself. And once you know that frequency, once you know that place where you can finally stop fighting yourself, it's priceless. Interesting. Thank you so much for sharing your knowledge and awareness. You are very welcome. So, okay, people, unless you have any more questions, I will be wrapping up. What's supposed to be an excuse? Thank you for sharing. Wasn't supposed to be an excuse. Hermit mode is good because you can't really do stuff when you're not in the hermit mode, right? Because people demonize isolation, but I think isolation is a big, big vehicle for awareness. So, good. You defended yourself there. Good. You're owning yourself. Good. Right? This is what I mean. People with wisdom, you should stand up for yourself. Express your truth. You know, he pulled me out here. It wasn't supposed to be an excuse. There you go. You're right. That was low of me to go to judge you like this. Good for you. Thank you very much. Have a lovely night, everyone. For those of you who are watching but are not ready to reach out to me in any way, innerworkmanual.com. That's my work. No AI has been used in creation of the course. That's apparently a plus now. No. Good night. Thank you. Thank you very much, Rach. For those of you who are ready and want some more orientation before buying the second level with my involvement, I can offer you a half-an-hour conversation to reassure you. And as I said before, that price for the second package, which is at the moment £249, with 2 sessions with me, the course plus 2 sessions with me. It's only going to be valid for another week, because after this, I'm upping the price according to its value. So it's life-changing. That's all I can say. No amount of books will help you. No amount of rationalizing, no amount of therapy, no amount of going around in circles. You're just going to be sick from looping. You're just going to be sick from fighting yourself, because if your consciousness is already upgrading what it is, because you wouldn't be here, then not acting out on it is going to drive you mad. I'm not talking about my course, I'm talking about doing something about your feelings, doing something about your truth, expressing who you truly are, right? And there's no bypassing it. The inner inquiry has to happen unless you do psychedelics, that's a different story, which I also work with. And I do integration work with people. So thank you very much for being here, and thank you very much for, what are your qualifications, please? Well, I have a Bachelor of Science in Psychology, and I have a diploma in counselling from NHS institution in the UK. Is that enough? Is that enough letters? No. Okay. Thank you very much, everyone. Lovely connecting with you. I'm really curious. You're probably from the camp of psychotherapists. You sound legit to me. I don't have to sound anything to anyone. You know, like, I'm sharing my experience. I've walked the path. My course is based on polyvagal theory by Stephen Porges. So it's not like I pulled it out of nowhere. No. Which is all about vagus nerve and the communication that happens in the body. So not a lot of psychotherapists even have that training, because no psychotherapy training includes nervous system training in the UK, or or the States for that matter. So there you go. Thank you very much. Have a lovely night, everyone. And I'll see you next time. Thank you. Bye bye.